I'm here today with Soren to talk about a new festival that's popping up in Denver, the Mile High City, and therefore the name of the festival, Mile High Power Fest 2024. Thank you very much for taking the time to join me to chat about the festival and to find out as much as possible about what you have in store for those attending. How's things going? First of all, let's start off by asking you how things going with you.
Absolutely incredible. I mean, the festival in and of itself it's a daunting thing for sure. Um, but I think that it's going to be incredible. I think that every musician that we have coming out, every single person is bringing something special, and it's something that the Denver scene really needs. And I think that it's gonna thrive here.
So when did you think about it? When did the idea pop into your mind that this would be a great idea, that this would be successful, that this needed to happen?
So really it was when my project played Hyperspace Metal Festival in Vancouver this past April. And pardon me, I remember looking around and thinking, this was the first metal festival that I had personally been to. And it was such like the vibes, everybody was just happy. It didn't matter, race, religion, sexual orientation. Everybody was just together and living in the moment and just having a good time. And that really kind of inspired me. That when we got back from the festival, I started, kind of thinking about, it'd be cool if this happened in Denver. I wonder if we can get this one day. And then it just kind of started snowballing into, having the venue set up, reaching out to bands, and it just kind of happened. Um, yeah.
Was it that easy?
It was a lot easier than I thought it would be. I definitely had quite a bit of help with it. Ty from Lords of the Trident really set me on the right path, along with Joey, who runs Hyperspace. And then I also had a local booker named Zach Beecroft that runs Denver Death Fest. And all three of those guys really gave me a lot of good advice. They helped me think about the unforeseen things to look out for, as well as the little things to make it run as smoothly as possible. And yeah, so it was challenging for sure. But again, yeah, without the help that I've had, it wouldn't happen. So major shout out to all three of those guys.
We're living in an age where everybody's always complaining about money for a multitude of reasons. And oh, I was going to sneeze. Putting something like this together, I'm sure it involves some costs. Was that the biggest hurdle for you to get the right funding so that you could pull this off?
Absolutely. The majority of the festival itself is coming out of my pocket, which I'm like, it's a passion project. So I'm more than happy to pay whatever I can. But I also had a lot of support from the bands, because I told them this is the inaugural year of the festival. Um, and we were able to work out, decent guarantees that are within reason, that aren't going to, bankrupt the festival or the production company or myself. Um, I think definitely the most expensive part of it was the accommodations for all the bands flying in, because there's only two, three bands on this bill that are from Denver. Everybody else is traveling from all over the country. Um, yeah.
So it's always going to be an issue. Or like you said, you want to do something that would bankrupt you guys, but how deep in the hole are you? Are you about to start of OnlyFans page with pictures of your feet in order to cover some of these costs? Is that what the next stage brings for you?
I don't think we're at that point quite yet.
Ah, darn! I was looking forward to that.
Maybe one day, maybe one day. But yeah, we've definitely had to crunch a lot of numbers and figure out where to cut things, what we can splurge a little bit on. But I have no doubt in my mind that everything's going to work out fine. Everything's going to be great.
Are you looking at, depending obviously on how successful it is, are you looking on continue this down the road, or this was just kind of like, okay, I really want to get this done and then take a break and see what happens in the future?
It definitely depends on how this year does. I know I've already got quite a few bands hitting me up for next year, wanting to play the festival, and if we can keep it going, I would absolutely love to. I think Denver has one of the most underrated metal scenes, I specifically in the U.S., but who knows where else? There's over 1,000 local metal bands in Denver, and the sense of community, the sense of support for each other as musicians, as well as just local artists in general, is something that blows me away, to be quite frank. It's definitely a very large community and a very supportive community. And so I have faith that this will continue for years to come.
So are you giving yourself, since your band is playing, are you giving yourself the biggest guarantee?
Absolutely not.
Or are you going
No,
pro bono on this one?
pretty much. Essentially with my project, I have it worked out. We're getting essentially the same guarantee as everybody else. Definitely not anymore. We're not like headlining fest by any means. I put us at a reasonable spot to make sense and reasonable guarantee with it. And yeah, definitely no favoritism played by any means.
There's no nepotism on your part. I like that. I think that's already a great way of starting these things. When you were thinking of the bands that you had the idea, okay, I want to do a festival. Obviously, you're going to have your own band on it. By the way, for those that don't know, can you share some information on your band?
Yeah. My band is called Celestial Wizard. We are from right here in Denver. We are currently signed by Scarlet Records out of Milan, Italy. And we are, the best way I think we've been described is skull crushing friendship metal. Um, all of our songs are very fast, very melodic, but also really have meaningful, powerful messages in them. We have a mix of dirty and clean vocals, guitar harmonies, double bass, all the fun metal stuff. And yeah, it's actually kind of funny. I first saw Celestial Wizard open up for Ailstorm back in like 2015, and I thought to myself, one day I'm going to be playing for these guys. And 3 days after I left my old project, I got asked to audition, and here we are.
Wow.
And yeah,
if you build it, they will come.
exactly.
It's kind of like that. So when you were putting the lineup, once you thought, okay, I want to do this, I want to push this project forward. Now it's time to think about the bands. Obviously, you're going to have your own band in it. Obviously, you're going to bring some bands from the local metal scene in order to give them some exposure, but also to facilitate in terms of logistics. But then you have to look beyond that. And how was that approach? Like, did you have like a handful of bands that you're like, man, I would really like to get these guys? Or did you take a different approach and it's like, okay, who can I call that owes me a favor and get them to show up for this festival?
Really, I started looking at bands that were close to Denver, just to not have to have bands worry about like flights and massive expenses to get here. And there were a couple that were close to Denver, but then I started realizing, hey, we need some good crowd draw. And so I remember at the same venue that the festival is at, I'd seen Seven Spires a couple times, and I had been able to chat with Peter, their bassist, and kind of become acquaintances with him. And so I was like, I wonder if Seven Spires would do it. So I reached out, kind of on a whim, and sure enough, they decided, yeah, we can make it work. And then like Aether Realm, Jake from Aether Realm is kind of buddies with Celestial Wizard a little bit. He featured in one of the band's music videos a few years back. I personally featured on a song with him with one of the opening bands a few years ago, which was pretty cool. And then it was really looking at bands that had a good draw. They were well known, they were well respected. And then I started reaching out to like some of the bands that we had played with previously at a hyperspace, for example. Pardon me. So that was like Traveler, Judicator, Grave Shadow. All three of those guys we'd played with previously, and so I figured, why not? And it kind of snowballed to that effect, and I was able to talk with a lot of different management companies, work out all the logistics, and one thing led to another, and I think we've got a pretty solid lineup for this
Yeah.
year.
For the opening year, for the debut year of the festival, I think you have a solid lineup, and I think Seven Spires and Other Realm are two bands that fans are familiar with, metalheads are familiar with. So based on those two bands alone, you would draw regardless. You know what I mean? Then you add
Yeah.
everybody else onto the list. It makes for a very fun day of metal. So what is the schedule like? Are you starting in the morning? Are you guys starting in the after? Like, what's your plans for? Because it's quite a few bands.
Yeah. So it is a full day. Doors are going to open at noon, and it goes until 11:30 p.m. Um, every because we have a full backline for the event, and we're also utilizing a projector for like logos instead of having bands having to bring their banners and setting up, and it really streamlines the changeover process, so we can afford to have 11 bands in one day. um, and then every band is like the two locals that are kicking off the show are starting out with half-hour sets. Every other band is 40 minutes to an hour. um, yeah, it's a full day. And we were really fortunate to be able to work with the Oriental Theater on this, specifically because, well, one, they're not with AEG or Live Nation. They're completely independent owned. And I'm trying to keep this festival as local as possible, save for like a lot of the performers, but the artwork, the logo, the photographers we have coming in, everything is from the local scene in Denver. So yeah.
Is it the venue not being part of one of those conglomerates that pretty much is taking over the whole scene as far as not just metal but music in general? Was that a huge requirement for you to be able to go more independent and have more of a homegrown feel and not have this huge umbrella over your head?
Absolutely. I think that, excuse me, starting out with, especially because of it being the first year of the festival, there's not necessarily a reputation around it. And I know it'd be pretty difficult to convince AEG or Live Nation to be able to take up this kind of thing. And the Oriental being like not only the one of the only independent venues, but also the largest independent venue in the state. Being able to work with them, and it's really taken a lot of the edge off. It's making it a lot less stressful. I've chatted with the owner of the venue a few times about the festival, and being able to chat with the person that owns the building is much more helpful and much easier than having to like climb up a corporate ladder to get answers and to work things out. So yeah, it is very much a blessing to have the Oriental host this event.
Are you planning any other outside of the band? I mean, the bands already give you a full schedule from the time you open until the time you close. But is there any other activities that you're planning on having or thinking of having, maybe like autograph sessions, things of that nature?
Yeah, so we were thinking about doing like a meet and greet with the festival, having pictures and stuff, all that fun stuff. I think with the stacked day that we have, it is kind of putting a damper in that. I mean, yeah, I would love to have like an hour before doors if you bought VIP, come in, hang out with the bands, get your chance to get merch early. That would have been great. I think it's too packed of a day this time around. I know we are looking at doing a festival pre-show the night before with a few local bands at a collective venue. In which case, I think that, you know, if the bands that are playing the fest want to make it out to that, I think it'd be a great opportunity to meet a lot of fans and just have fun and relax before the big day. But I also think that, you know, with it being this long of a day, I think, you know, the bands are going to be able to wander around the crowd, hang out at their merch tables. I think there will be plenty of opportunities to meet people, take pictures, get autographs, all that fun stuff.
Are you guys going to have some of your own merch as well?
Oh yeah. Yep. I'm making sure every single band has a spot for merch. And you know, with 11 bands, it can get a little challenging. But we've done our measurements. We've got a whole section of the venue that is just going to be for merch. So every single band is encouraged and, sorry. Yeah. Every single band is encouraged to bring, merch and, you know, sell what they can.
What about the festival? Are you going to have some Mile High Power Fest t-shirts and things like that?
You know, not this year. I don't know if it's really in the budget. I know
make it in the budget, man. You got to make it in the
budget. Man, I would love to.
Pay the guys from Other Realm a little bit less and get some t-shirts.
Yeah, I think right now there is a plan to have limited t-shirts for like for the artists, for the crew. But I think for next year's festival, you know, if everything falls in line, all the stars align, I think t-shirts are definitely a good idea, and I think they would sell.
I think so too, especially if you create a little bit of like a VIP package, you know, some way of getting some extra funding that way as well. Because it's always a great souvenir. I mean, you can always buy t-shirts from the bands anytime you see the band play, but yeah. I can speak only for myself personally. Every time I attend a festival, I always buy a t-shirt, regardless if I'll wear it or not. It's just kind of a souvenir that tells me that I was there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think next year for sure we can make it happen. This year, I think we're a little stretched.
Last question for you. When you look at this festival, when you look at the setup, by the way, we haven't mentioned yet, but it's happening August 24th in Denver, Colorado. I mean, Mile High, we already mentioned Denver, but the date is important, August 24th. I have two last questions for you. One is, are the tickets already available? And where can people find the tickets?
Yeah, so the tickets are on sale. GA is $45. We have reserved tables that seat
45
$45.
That's it?
That's it.
And you're expecting to make money for $45?
We've crunched our numbers. Absolutely.
I think this lineup is worth at least $60 at the very least. Like, it's cheap, man. That's really that's super affordable.
Well, yeah, and I know you'd mentioned, you know, in this day and age of, you know, people struggling for money, like personally, I'm not planning on having any money in my pocket personally from this. This is a passion project. I want to make sure all the bands get paid, that it's a fair price. I'm not really in this to make money. I'm in this so that people can have a good time.
Yeah, but you're charging less than a t-shirt. Like if you go to a show these days, merch is running anywhere between at least in Canada, I don't know about the US, but in Canada, we're paying around between $50 and $60 Canadian, which is around 45, 50 US. So you're charging the price of a Judas Priest t-shirt.
Yeah. And you know, I think maybe if next year, if we get some pretty big bands on, we might raise those prices up. But as of right now, I think 45 is perfect, and I think that it'll entice more people to come, knowing that it's not going to cost an arm and a leg to attend. But yeah, tickets are on sale. You can find them on the Mile High Power Fest Facebook page, the Oriental Theater website. as well. If you just do a quick Google search for Mile High Power Fest, it'll pop up right there. And yeah,
I'll make things easier for everybody. You'll send me all the links, and I'll put them in the
yes,
description of the video.
perfect. That
Okay,
sounds
it
good.
makes life easier for everybody.
That it does.
Wow, $45. I mean, if I could attend, I would have been there. I mean, that's really affordable, and I commend you for doing that, because you don't see that very often these days. I mean, if I go see two local bands here in Toronto, that's pretty much what I'm paying. Never mind the Judas Priest T-shirt, but that's pretty much what I'm paying. So once again, August 24th, Denver, Colorado, $45 general admission. I mean, buy one for your friends and bring the family with you as well. Like I think this is going to be great. I love the price tag. But last question for you is, do you have a bar that you would consider this to be a success in your mind? Is there something that you need to see happening on this inaugural year that would make you feel super comfortable and excited to continue the journey down the road?
If we can get the venue at over half capacity, that to me screams a
What's the
success, because
what's,
that
what's the capacity?
700.
I think you're
So
going to be close to capacity. Like,
yeah, well, I hope so, because I mean, crunching numbers, if we do half capacity or a little more than half capacity, we're breaking even. Which I really don't think will be an issue. Um, but I think if I can just, wander out in the crowd and just see smiles on people's faces and see everybody just having a good time, and, not having to worry about life and the crap world we live in nowadays, I think that to me is what this is about. And that's the ultimate goal, is just to make sure everybody has a space where they can come let loose and have fun and just have a day of kick-ass metal.
I think you're putting everything together. I commend you for taking this approach. I see a lot of pop-up. I shouldn't say pop-up. I mean, they're popping up, but I hope it's going to be a continuous thing of smaller festivals in the U.S. Mile High now being the latest, but there's been others this year and the previous years. I see that becoming more of a trend, U.S. and Canada. I see a lot of these smaller festivals starting to show up here and show up there. I think that's great for the ecosystem. I think that's great for the bands. And I think that it's great that a lot of them are run by people like you, who are part of the local scene, who wanted to do something more for the scene, who want to move away from the big conglomerates and do something for the grassroots. I think this is phenomenal. I love it. The thing that I always hope is that it's successful, at least successful enough to entice people to continue to do it. And I think you're going to achieve that. I think you have all the right ingredients here, and Seven Spires and Etherrealm as two bands that are sitting on top of your list of bands for the day. I think are two phenomenal bands that I've seen a multitude of times. I'm friends with both, so I think you're going to have a great night of metal, and I think everybody's going to have a lot of fun.
Well, thank you. It's I'm looking forward to it. My excitement for it, whether it's excitement or nerves, it's growing by the day. And I think when the day finally comes, it's going to be one of the best nights of my life. And hopefully it is for a lot of other people too.
All right, Soren, thank you very much for your time, man. It was an absolute pleasure. I wish you nothing but the best with the festival. We'll chat after the festival, because I want to get a recap from you after the festival in terms of how things went. How was it? How was the turnout? Did everything meet your expectations? I'm invested. So I honestly want to chat with you after August 24th. Let's do this again then to find out exactly how things went. And maybe if you're kind enough, maybe shoot some little videos to send my way, so we can include that in our conversation, so people can get a feel for what the experience was. I think that would be great. Thank you very much for your time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
Take care, man.
Take care. Have a good one.